Om Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swamine Tapaharine. Today is the auspicious Janmatithi according to the Hindu calendar of Sri Ramakrishna. Though our official celebration, the celebrations of Sri Ramakrishna's birthday will be on Sunday, this next Sunday, and we will be having a spiritual retreat from 2:30 onwards, followed by two talks by two guest speakers, guest Swamijis. One is from Belur Mutt, Swami Satyeshananda, and who is also one of the assistant secretaries of the Ramakrishna Mutt and also a trustee. And the second talk will be by Swami Muktidanandji. So the first talk will deal with Sri Ramakrishna's message for householder devotees, how to lead a God-centered life. That is the first topic. And the second topic by Swami Muktidanandji will deal with a very nice theme. He wrote an article, in fact, which was published in our Vedanta. So he'll elaborate on what he wrote. Sri Ramakrishna, the great spiritual educator. What exactly we mean by spiritual education, how he trained his disciples on the spiritual path. That will be discussed in the second talk. And of course, there will be a question answer session. So I would request all of you to attend the session. It is at 2:30. Of course, it will begin, the session will begin with some bhajans by devotional songs on Sri Ramakrishna by Dattatreya Velankar. So he very often used to come and stay in our center during Durga Puja, which he is planning to do this year as well. Before he goes to Germany, he has been invited by our France center and also Geneva center. So before that, he will be visiting England, but we'll get an opportunity to hear him live, as well as the regular Chandi, which he will be doing on every day of Navratri. That is what we have planned right now. So he will be singing devotional songs on from 2:30. So 3 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time, that is London time, the retreat will begin and it will last up to 5, depending on how long the Swami speak. I have told them to take their own time, answer all the questions which our devotees would like to I'd like to ask. And that will be, of course, followed by our regular evening session, that is from 7 to 8, but it will begin at 6:30, where we will have some devotional songs from Sanchita Pal from Birmingham. She has agreed to sing a few songs. So we'll have it at 6:30, and 7 o'clock will be the talk on life and message of Sri Ramakrishna. Today is our regular Rajoga class, but for the last 2 days, we have been taking a session on, which is a very important topic, which is of course more relevant to people who have been initiated by getting mantra or who are interested in knowing something about the Upasana as it is practiced in the Ramakrishna order. It is nothing, it is a open thing, a combination of both Vedanta and Tantra, as we have often mentioned. The best elements, even Swamiji's Raj Yoga, if we see, he does not restrict himself while discussing the different ideas. While discussing even the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, you will find him mentioning many things like Kundalini and other things, which are really not part of Patanjali's yoga. But he has synthesized all these wonderful streams of thought, which are, of course, they have their origin in the Vedas, whether it is Tantras or the idea of Purusha and Prakriti, in the yoga, in the Sankhya philosophy, which forms the basis of yoga, or we have the Shiva Shakti concept from the Tantras, or Brahman and Maya the concept which Advaitins believe in. The very idea of Maya is not very much different from the concept of Shakti. So there is a wonderful harmony you will find. And of course, the Upanishadic wonderful ideas of prana, the universal energy, the cosmic energy, and all the energies that we see, whether it is in inanimate objects or even animate, mostly animate objects, the pancha pranas, as we popularly call them. But Swamiji does not restrict prana to just the pancha pranas of Upanishads. He generalizes it and says that all the forces that we see around us in nature, including the forces of gravitation and every force that impinges upon matter and in such a way that the whole creation starts. So even in inanimate objects, you have that prana. So the universalization of prana, about which he spoke to Tesla and who wanted to develop a unified field theory, which of course he could not do during his lifetime, but later on it was Einstein and others. Even now, they are trying to find something, some common energy, field of energy, which can explain all the other forces like gravitation, electricity, electromagnetic, and we have so many forces in the inanimate world. And apart from that, in the living world also, the pancha prana, which give rise to, which animate our body, and that is the difference between a living body, and the pranas are the difference between a living body and a dead body. The moment the body dies, you say the prana is left. Of course, strictly speaking, the pranas do not leave. Some prana, some residual prana remains, that we will be discussing in the Vedanta class, which we discuss on Wednesday. Vedanta and the science of human possibilities, because there the idea of how the soul migrates and does the prana totally leave the body. If that had happened, then the Sukshma Sharira would not take birth again. Though the pranas which are responsible for our bodily functions, since you don't have a heart, when the prana leaves the body, the heart doesn't function, so it doesn't require that prana, the breathing also, because lungs are not functioning. So prana, apana, samana, and all those, the assimilation, the circulation, the assimilation, which happens in the bloodstream, even that is not required because there's no body at all. But then what is the prana that remains? So there is a vayu or prana known as udana, which is responsible, which makes a person, Udana Vayu has many functions. Let us not go into the detail, but one of the functions is to retain the body heat. The second is to make the body, it is anti-gravity, you can say. Apana pushes things downward, which is natural. Everything that we put inside, it has to go down and just be thrown out of the body. But there is a force which acts in the upward direction. We get a clear indication of this Udana Vayu when the doctor who treated Sri Ramakrishna, the physician, the Ayurvedic physician, not Mahendralal Sarkar, he was totally flabbergasted when he saw Sri Ramakrishna. He saw all the signs of a dead person, and he was just trying, as a medical allopathic doctor would do, to find any sign of life, which he could not. And there was no way of knowing whether the body of Sri Ramakrishna, is it in samadhi? If it is in samadhi, what happens after that? How does he come back to life? So medically, possibly you can't explain any of these things. It is beyond the medical science. That is, he was totally surprised. But this Ayurvedic doctor, if you see, it is there in the Great Master, when Sri Ramakrishna actually passed into Mahasamadhi, he was called for. Of course, Dr. Sarkar also came. And then this doctor, the Ayurvedic, I don't exactly remember his name, but he was a famous Ayurvedic physician who depend a lot on the 5 pranas and how they affect the body. Any pranic imbalance results in sickness. So that is how Ayurveda, the humors are also there, 3 humors. It's a totally different science, though anatomy and physiology, everything is the same, but Ayurvedic diagnoses and many things are not common with the present day allopathy. But anyway, this physician goes and touches the head of Sri Ramakrishna and then finds that there is no heat there. So then he comes to the conclusion that the Udana Vayu has left, there's no chance now. He is not going to come back. So if you see the studies on the most of the Upanishads and the other scriptures, they say that Udana Vayu is the only prana which survives. Even after death, it is there, and it acts as a vehicle, because our karmashaya, all the samskaras that we have gathered, the baggage of our karma, we have to carry it, and we need a vehicle to carry it forward. So what is that vehicle? That is the Udana Vayu. So which enters again when a new baby is born, and of course he gets the prana from the universe. So this idea of prana being such a dominant force in our life, and this interpretation, this particular interpretation, you will find only in Raj Yoga. So when we discuss Raj Yoga, it is strictly not Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, because Patanjali was not bothered about all this prana and other things. Though he says pranayama is discussed, but he doesn't discuss it. It's just one of the ways to concentrate the mind or quieten the mind. The mind is restless. He is just bothered about how to, his whole yoga, the definition of yoga is Chitta Vritti Nirodha. He is not bothered about anything else. His primary aim or goal of Raj Yoga is how to make these vrittis, how to calm down these vrittis. And in the first class, we discussed why should we calm down the vrittis. And the example was given of the vast ocean. The ocean has a lot of waves. And these waves, small and big, they create a lot of turbulence on the surface. I mean, deep inside, everything is calm. But on the surface, there's a lot of turbulence, and that results in kind of restlessness, which does not allow us to realize our true nature, which according to Sankhya is Purusha, according to Vedanta, it is Brahman. Now, how to realize it? The Upanishads tell one method. The Patanjali's Yoga or Sankhya give us another method, but they may be different techniques, but the method is same. Or the Tantras prescribe another method, which we will come to now. Today, I'll little diverge from the main topic, and we will try to discuss what is our sadhana like. In our Ramakrishna mission, we are a combination of Vedanta, following Swamiji's ideal, of course, because Swamiji did not restrict himself to Patanjali's yoga. He mixed Tantra in that. Now everybody is quoting Swami Vivekananda and talks of Kundalini, not knowing that Patanjali never spoke about Kundalini, nor did the commentators, Vyasa and Bhoja, who wrote commentaries on sutras. They were not concerned, because this Shakti school or this Tantra school was perhaps developed later, or maybe even if it was there, it was not so popular. So you will not hear Kundalini. Now everybody is mixing up all these theories. If you want to study independently Patanjali's yoga, then there are Patanjali's Yoga Sutras and the commentaries. If you want to study Tantras, there are other texts. If you want to study Vedanta, there is another text. And if you want to, the Upanishads are there and Shankaracharya's commentary is there. But it was the genius of Swami Vivekananda who, in this Raj Yoga, that's why he has not named it Patanjali's Yoga. It is Raj Yoga. Not only Raj Yoga, it is Raj Yoga not in the technical sense of Raj Yoga. Raj Yoga is a small branch of Patanjali's yoga, which was developed later. We do not know if Patanjali had anything to do with that, but it is a kind of Hatha Yoga. That is also known as Raj Yoga. But Swamiji's Raj Yoga is totally different. It is Raj Yoga because Raja means kingly. It's a kingly science. So he believed that the basis of all the other three yogas, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and the third yoga, that is Karma Yoga, These three represent three faculties of the mind. Karma yoga depends on your willpower. The more your will, the more stronger your will, the more you are fit for karma yoga. To put it very simple, in a simple way, if you are very intellectual, you can analyze, rationalize things, then Jnana yoga is the path for you. And if you are full of emotions, you can transmute those emotions and direct it to the Lord. You have bhakti yoga. So three yogas are predominantly discussed in our scriptures. But Swamiji says, when he wrote the introduction, there is a fourth power of the mind, which this Patanjalas or Patanjali's followers discovered, that control of the mind or the restraining power of the mind is a fourth power, which it was obvious to even Shankaracharya, path of jnana, path of bhakti, path of karma, everywhere it was obvious. But it was not treated as a separate path because it was common. You have to restrain your mind, even to do bhakti, even to do karma, or even to do jnana yoga. The restraint of mind was understood. They thought if a restless person comes and tries to follow any of these three yogas, other than, of course, Raj Yoga is impossible, but even the other three yogas were not possible. So Shankaracharya, whether it is the Jnana path or the Bhakti path, all the saints of India, they hoped, or they at least expected, the adhikaris who would actually follow the path of yoga to have a more or less steady mind. If they had restless mind, they'll say, better don't follow any yoga. You better enjoy the world till the waves calm down. So the idea is, this waves, the more we go deep into the ocean, the waves do not affect you. So the turbulence is only on the surface. So that is what we described. That is the essential of sadhana is, are we prepared to, are we really tired of the turbulence? That is the first question. If you are tired of the turbulence, if you are tired of the tossing around in the waves, if it is a calm sea, then you don't have much problem. But if there is a some kind of turbulence on the surface of the ocean, then whoever he may be a good surfer, he may be knowing surfing, but somehow he would definitely get tired at a certain point of time, and he would like to dive deep, go in and enjoy the peace. So that's what is happening. The vibrations of the mind are making us so restless that, leave alone yoga. So before even we discuss the other three yogas, Raj Yoga says a adhikari or a person who is fit has to have a comparatively restful mind. Not totally, vrittis will never stop, but at least they should not be turbulent, because then you can't do anything. So Raj Yoga, as Swamiji explained it, is the power of restraining the mind. When you restrain the mind, just as the mind has the power of emotions, which when channelized, you can convert it into bhakti to reach the goal, or you use your logic or analysis between the nitya, temporary, and permanent reality which you encounter, or you use the willpower to channelize your will and direct it in such a way that it becomes karma yoga. But for all, you need Raj Yoga, because Raj Yoga is a kingly science according to Swamiji. Raja means king. So he said Raj Yoga is the basis of all the other three yogas. So with a disturbed mind, we cannot practice other yogas. So that is the essence of our mantra sadhana. Now we come to the idea of mantra. Now here tantra comes in. This yoga, the principles of yoga are valid. Definitely they are valid in any sadhana. Even in the Shravana, Manana, Nidhi, Dhyasana of the Upanishads, the pure Vedantic sadhana, there also this is valid. I mean, the mantra, the idea of restraining the mind, the principles of Raj Yoga are valid there also. They are also valid in bhakti, because there can be no bhakti unless a mind is controlled. If your mind is not running after the Lord alone, if it is restless for many things, then how can there be bhakti? So concentration of mind is something which unifies all the three yogas. So this ideal must be clear. So the first, Swami Yatiswaranji writes that the first thing in spiritual life is, first we should be clear before even beginning the sadhana or upasana as it is known in our order. We just don't call it sadhana, it is known as upasana. Because upasana and sadhana, there's a slight difference. Upasana means to be sitting near whom? Our Ishta or ideal. There's a difference because Ishta is somebody whom we hope to, we hope that the Ishta will help us to reach the goal. Because by meditating on the Ishta, you reach the goal. So this ideal, this trying to be as near the idea, as the ideal as possible, our Ishta as possible, is known as Upasana, means to sit near. So what do you do how can you sit near the Lord? That means you have to go, which we discussed in the second class, yesterday, that we have to find three things. We have to find the center of our consciousness where we should practice this upasana. There should be some center. So first you have to fix an ideal. It should be clear. We must have a definite idea of the goal we have to attain. So as long as we have that in very clear, we cannot be vague and dreamy. Maybe in our day-to-day life, it may somehow work, but we have to find that unless our goal is clear and there is not much of superficial thinking, our aspirations are predefined, there's a clear-cut purpose or a deepened awareness of what really are we doing when we are practicing this mantra yoga, it is very difficult to even imagine that it will help us in any way. So as we discussed yesterday, I'll briefly recapitulate what I said. First thing, people, when they want a kind of spiritual initiation, it's not only in our tradition, but in any tradition, if you want spiritual, Diksha means simple spiritual initiation, to initiate somebody in the path of the spirit. So that goal, which first, if the goal is clear, then we have to have some basic faith to start with. That is, that goal can be attained through mantra Diksha. That is the first idea. Then, first thing, having ascertained that the goal can be reached through Diksha, that is the first premise on which our sadhana or upasana is based. If we are not sure, then it's better not to start the process at all, because that wavering faith is not good, or wavering belief. Then second thing, we have to understand very clearly, are there any stepping stones? The progress that we are making, are we going in the right direction? Many people, they have been taken initiation for a very long time, and perhaps they feel that they were where they were when they started, or sometimes they feel we are worse than what we were much happier then. What is wrong? Because the stepping stones or the proximate goals or the intermediate goals, I would not say proximate, it's some kind of intermediate goal also should be known, because we know that it takes a lifetime or several lifetimes to reach the goal. So should we give up our upasana or sadhana? Are there any proximate goals or intermediate goals which will at least console us, or at least tell us, oh no, you are on the right path? So that is the second. First, the goal should be clear. After having ascertained that, after having faith in that, and also that the spiritual initiation that we are taking will take us to that goal. And the third important thing is, there are two things. One is the methodology, which obviously you come to know when you go to somebody and get the spiritual initiation, some methodology is taught. Every sadhana, any path which you follow, there is a method. You may call it rituals, but it is a method. Rituals are nothing but methods. When you do puja also, there is a method. You can't do it haphazardly. And people are so particular, and they take a lot of precaution. Am I doing the right thing? So there is a methodology. But apart from that, another important thing is there should be a rationale for that. Method is important, but why I am supposed to do this thing. That is not very often clear. People go by faith. It is a very good thing to go by faith. If one can use faith alone to reach the goal, like Latu Maharaj did, Adbhutanand, he didn't bother. Sri Ramakrishna has told him and he will just blindly follow him. That faith is very, very rare. So Holy Mother used to often say, I was wondering what she meant when she said, if you have faith and if you have firmness, then you have everything. But really, do we have that faith? That is the problem. So for such people who don't have faith, they need some rationale. Some reasoning is necessary. Why exactly are we supposed to do? That is the role. These are the 5 things which a guru is supposed to explain to the disciple. First, the methodology, which of course come in a tradition. That has to be there. That we'll discuss that. Unless it comes in a tradition, then each one will have his own method, and the person who will suffer is the disciple. So there is a beautiful saying which says, the right method practiced by the wrong person and the wrong method practiced by the right person, right disciple, both will not bear fruit. So first of all, the method should be right. And even if the method is right, the wrong person has been chosen, or maybe he has chosen himself, but that wrong person will not understand or maybe he doesn't have faith. And the 4th point, 3 points, I'll just recapitulate. First is the goal to be attained through Diksha, the different stepping stones which tell us whether we are on the right path, some intermediate goals. I'm not saying that intermediate goals should deter us from going towards the highest goal. In fact, they are like obstacles. In fact, in Patanjali's yoga, the whole Vibhuti Pada, there was a debate. Why is Patanjali talking about all these things? If you see the Vibhuti Yoga, we have not yet started discussing that. It is full of powers. Because you do Sanyama on anything, the secrets of that particular thing are revealed to you. So that gives you powers. Why should he discuss it? He is a scientist. He knows that there are people who will not have this highest goal in mind. But he gives a very clear warning, or at least the commentators give a warning. Maybe these things are discussed because as a scientist, he has to discuss everything, the intermediate and the proximate goals, but they will deter you from the highest goal. That point has to be remembered. So that is why in the Upasana that is normally followed in the Ramakrishna tradition, anything less than the highest goal is, we are warned, please don't use the Upasana for that. Patanjali doesn't warn you. He definitely warns, the commentators warn, but there's so much of discussion. That's why people are tempted. They said, okay, let us go after the highest goal later on. Let us see what these things happen. But then you have to remember Sri Ramakrishna's famous story. Sri Ramakrishna had some wonderful ways of explaining all the things. You know, he said a person did tapasya for 30 to 40 years and he got the power to walk on water. And he, of course, got that power because when you do Sanyama, Patanjali says you become light. There are many things. Let us not discuss, but the essence of the parable is, Sri Ramakrishna says, this gentleman or this yogi got that power and he was walking over the water. A wise man came, a really spiritual person came, and he said, 40 years you spent in just walking over water. You could have paid 10 paisa and crossed the river using a boat. If that was the goal, so that shows that the intermediate goals or proximate goals sometimes can lead you astray. With that warning, we have to remember the goal and purpose to be attained through Diksha or through spiritual initiation is very clear before our mind. So we have discussed that in the first class. Now, 2 other things have to be remembered. One is the obstacles that mantra yoga or any yoga poses before us when we are going towards the goal. Because nothing will be smooth sailing. Definitely life is not so, it is so complicated. So you can imagine this. So Upasana will be more complicated than a normal life. So definitely it is not going to be something without obstacles. It is like, as Thakur used to say, somebody was saying, let the waves subside, then I will learn swimming. Then we can't learn. We have to start swimming. So obstacles will be there. And secondly, you have to know if the obstacles are there, you should know the means to overcome these obstacles. So that is the, in brief, the idea behind the 5 things you have to consider before even undertaking this undertaking to get initiated or spiritual initiation. So now we come to Japa Sadhana. Japa Sadhana is something, Japa Yoga, in fact, if you like to call it, it is actually a combination of Bhakti, Raja, and even you can say Karma, as somebody asked Sri Ramakrishna, and Sri Ramakrishna says, the Japa that you do, is it not Karma? So you want to give up all the Karma, and you think even breathing is a Karma, even the doing of Japa is a Karma. So Japa Sadhana is a combination of all philosophies, all paths. The path of Bhakti Yoga, because Ishta is involved, the path of Kundalini, I mean the Tantras, where the Bija and the Mantras, they have a tremendous importance, which is perhaps not there in the Bhakti. You just say a prayer, it need not be verbal at all. You just pray for the grace. Most of the Semitic religions, they don't have this idea of Bija and the mantra. They have idea, they have prayers. Of course, this mantra is also a prayer. Bhakti is also involved. It's a prayer to the Lord to deliver you from, to remove all your sorrow, to remove all ignorance. The Gayatri mantra is a wonderful universal prayer of the Vedas, where he says, Dhiyo yona prachodayata, Om Bhurbhos. We pray to the sun, Lord, the bright effulgent sun. Sun, not in that the physical sun, but the light of Paramatman. We pray to him. Bhargo devasya dhimai dhiyo yona. Opening of the dhi. Dhi means the center of gravity or the center of our consciousness, which is the first step. As I told you, there are intermediate goals. So the first goal you can say, which is a non-material goal, not to have some material benefits by Diksha. The first proximate goal or the first intermediate goal is to find the center of consciousness. That itself takes a long time to find out where exactly should I focus. What happens when you do japa? So the first thing that happens when you do rhythmic chanting of the mantra, the first thing that is supposed to, that is one of the intermediate goals, is that awakening of the heart center. The awakening of the heart center. First of all, when you are asked to meditate in the heart, we have to find out its location. Where is it? What is this heart? Is it the heart which is beating on the left hand side, the physical heart? No, it has nothing to do with the physical heart. So what is this heart center? What happens when it opens? And how do we know that it has opened? So these are all the things that we normally hope to resolve, or you may say it's one of the proximate goals. So japa, that means, now to put it very briefly, is the first proximate goal or the intermediate goal of japa is to open the heart center. Then it has, of course, many things happen later on, but let us first start that. But how should japa be done? So first of all, it should be, any haphazard or careless repetition will not lead us to the goal. One should be fully aware. So in a very sleepy way, that is why they insist on so many things. They are not just rituals. There's a rationale behind all the japa. The spine should be erect. You have to sit properly. People may ask, what's the point? Can I not do it? You can, of course, you can do it. But if you do it systematically, you will find that it really has, it serves the purpose for which it is done. So now, as you see, the whole universe is made of name and form, nama and rupa, as Vedanta says. Now Vedanta comes in nama and rupa. In the tantric language, or in the language of the tantras, nam nami abhed, that is the fundamental idea they hold on to. This is to be understood very clearly. Otherwise, mantra is just some words. No, if that will be very wrong, if that sincerity is not there, it is as valuable. You can imagine. There is the famous story of, there are so many songs in our bhakti literature. Purandar Dasa in Kannada, there are so many other Telugu saints also. They were angry with their Lord for not giving them the vision. Then out of some kind of anger, they say, I don't care for you, because he was not showing, the Lord was not showing. That is how the devotees try to feel. They want to see the Lord, but they, for some reason, but then out of anger, they say something, such a great truth. They said, I don't care for you because I have got your name. So Nam Nami Abhed, I have your name. It is as good as having you. So if you want, you show me, give me your vision, or if you don't give, it's okay. I am happy with the name. So there's a lot of psychological truth in that. You cannot separate the name and the form. So Thakur, in his very wonderful, simple, rustic language, he says, Nam Nami Abhed. You see, to understand this, now we have to spend 1 hour. We think Thakur was, Thakur, gospel we read every day, Nam Nami Abhed. He just, every sentence of Sri Ramakrishna is full of meaning. And imagine if you, just one paragraph, if you read of the gospel, I can't imagine a better text to understand spirituality, to understand what spirituality is. If you want to learn it the hard way, then you have to, there are ways. People are sometimes complex, minds are not simple. They think this is gospel is very simple. But to understand each line of what he says, or even few words, it is so difficult. Now you see, when you come to this idea of Nam Nami Abhed, you will understand what is the significance of Japa and why we should give importance to the mantra. So how is to be mantra practice? And the thing is, you see that there is another question which is asked by many people. In Japa, there are two things. As I said, Nama, Rupa. So first, let us begin with visualization. Rupa means the form, which the Nama represents, and the name, Nam or Nami. Nami means the form on whom you are meditating. Of course, we have to assume that we are worshipping a God with form, an avatara or a living reality. We are not worshipping any photo or anything or some. He is a living reality who lived in human flesh and blood. We may not have seen him, but he is a real person, a real human being who has incarnated. So when you say Nami, when you say Sri Ramakrishna and Nam Abhed, Nam Nami Abhed, that means that name is what you get is like Sri Ramakrishna has given himself to you. That is the importance of, in at least in Tantras. They believe that if you have the name, the form will come. It will just come along with the name. That's why they give so much importance to the rhythmic repetition of the mantra, because that helps us to reveal the Ishta on whom we can't visualize him. We can visualize the photograph, of course, but that is not the real Ramakrishna. It just helps us. But who is the real Ramakrishna? Where will this Nam lead us to? Who is the Nami? Who is the person who is represented? And one consolation is there. Tantra say you don't have to worry. If the Nam is there, Nami will come. He may not come today, but you will realize him as you go on practicing. So you have to understand what this japa is, what it does. So these mantras, they are not ordinary words. When you write some words on the paper, they appear to be dead. It's a book. They are dead. What is living in those words? But according to tantras, which believe in the power of Kundalini, when they combine with Sushumna, I think I have explained it to you. Normally in a human being, the nerve currents pass through the Ida and Pingala, that is the two spinal cords, which if you take a section of the spinal cord, there is a figure of 8 and there's a small hollow in between. So physiologically, that is how Swami Shardananji explains that, because he studied medicine. So he tries to give this explanation that the hollow which is there, most of our energies, nervous energy, I mean, by which we do most of the functions, even when we are sleeping, there is a slight nervous energy. Otherwise, we would not breathe. We would not do any of our autonomous nervous system is extremely active. But that is only a fraction of the infinite power of our infinite prana or infinite nervous energy that we possess. That is what these tantrics discovered, that because it is passing through these two spinal cords, and they have a network, they have their own network. Certain nerves control the different parts of the body. Again, we'll come to that concept of chakra later on. But let us just remember, what does this japa do? In an ordinary human being, the nerve currents pass through the spinal cord, and they are very essential. Otherwise, we would not be able to function in the body. So they go efferent and efferent nervous system. All these things are there, and medicine has done wonderful research. Everything is true. But what the yogis have added, not the yogis, because yoga Patanjali does not discuss how it happens, but tantras discuss. They say this hollow is the Sushumna Nadi. It is given the name, a technical name of Sushumna, which is of tremendous significance in spirituality. That nerve current, somehow, by hook or by crook, you have to force the nerve currents to pass through that. Then what happens? Why can't they pass through the Ida and Pingala? That binds you to the body. We are imprisoned in the body. We cannot feel that we are bodiless only because the nerve currents are passing. So we have imprisoned in the prison which we have created. The body is a prison, and what is making us imprisoned? It is these nerve currents which are forced. I mean, it is the Lord who has forced it. It is His will. So it is passing through these two efferent and efferent cords, which are known as Ida and Pingala. So the yogis discovered, see, these are not scientific discovery. They are scientific, but in the field of spirit. They found that just as you see, when you want to pass certain signals through the electricity or anything, through a wire, there are limitations. If the wire is broken, you are gone. But they said, why are you dependent on this Ida and Pingala? This is the greatest discovery Tantra made. He said, force the nervous energy or your mental energy, all the energy that you have, and force it through the hollow. Then what happens? Then you are independent of the body. That is what is meant when you think of the spirit, you don't think of the gross things. It may be easier said than done. Every time the nerve currents pass, we feel tremendous imprisonment. That is what these yogis or these tantras say. The Kundalini, the moment it passes through Sushumna, it is like passing the nerve currents without any media, without any wires. And then we have the wireless, then nothing can block it. It can just pass. That is the goal of yoga or goal of tantras. And how does it happen when you do japa? When you do japa, actually, they have found that the bija and the whole mantra taken together, they have, especially the bija, has that power. And this nervous energy is somehow forced to pass through that sushumna. That is when you start feeling that you are slowly becoming, you are entering the world of spirit, just entering. When it is at the base, it is normally at the base of the spine. But when it comes to the heart center, that is what we are aiming at now. We are not aiming at the Sahasrara, then we would be in Samadhi. But here, the third center, which is the first center where some kind of, you may call it a center of gravity. We are restless now because we have not found our center of gravity. Today morning, I was discussing this topic. Some of you must have seen some dolls which have a big sphere, and on the top there is a small sphere which looks like a head, and then there's the body. It's normally given to children, and then if you just give it a blow, it will fall down because the center of gravity. But they somehow put some heavy thing inside, which is below, which cannot be on the top, otherwise it will tumble down. It will be, the center of gravity is below, I mean somewhere in the middle, and then you try to disturb the doll, it will go, but again it will come back, retain its own center of gravity. Now that is what happens when we focus, when we do japa, when we chant mantra rhythmically. Now I am not talking of visualization. As I told you, there is one aspect of mantra, that is rupa, another is nama. The rhythmic repetition, just sound. I'm not talking of any visualization. Just doing the japa. That is why Holy Mother said japat siddhi. She knew many of us may not be able to visualize, so at least do rhythmically. Then what happens? This center opens. All these things she said in one sentence, japat siddhi. Now if people have faith, they are saved the trouble of understanding all these things. But unfortunately, our minds are complicated. We want complex explanations. So we question everything. That is the problem with us. We hope that we had a simple faith like Sri Ramakrishna or Latu Maharaj, or they didn't have any problem. In fact, Swamiji said, the problem, Sri Ramakrishna is very lucky because he didn't go to any university. He learned everything from nature. He was born with a tremendous faith. And for him, mother was everybody, everything. He just had to depend on mother, and she taught everything. But we are complicated. We think others will teach us better. And when we come to grief, then we go back to mother. So anyway, this simple idea of the nama, the rhythmic repetition of the mantra, somehow forcing its way through the Sushumna, is the real essence. What happens now, as I told you, the intermediate goal, which has to be clear in our mind, says that when we do rhythmically japa, continuously, it has to be done. The example given is, it should not be in spurts, like the fountain. If it is a fountain, it should be continuous. Now, it is difficult. I know it is very difficult. When we sit, even for 15 minutes, we cannot rhythmically repeat anything. Then it is difficult because then it will take more time. But another principle which we have to remember is the more finer. Now the question is, why can't we shout loudly the mantra that is given? One of the main questions is, I can't repeat the mantra in my mind. Why not repeat the mantra loudly so that I can focus on it better? Because when we are gross, we hear the sound reproduction. We are familiar with the uttered sound. Ahata dhvani, not anahata. Ahata means that which is struck. So the air strikes the throat, the lips, and the palate, and all those things, and then sound is reproduced that way. If you lose that, then maybe you will be dumb. So something has to vibrate. The vocal cords have to vibrate. They have to create a situation where there is vibration, and then the sound comes. But that is ahata dhvani. There is another dhvani which is known as anahata, unstruck sound. That is what we aim. So that anahata dhvani is, of course, a very distant dream for us, but at least now we can focus on making that sound subtle. Why mental repetition is better than the physical repetition? The reason is, subtler forces are stronger than the gross forces that we see. That is the general rule in nature. Whatever is subtle controls the grosser thing. Annamaya kosha, that is the body, is controlled by prana, which is slightly subtle. That prana and the sense organs which are animated by this prana is further controlled by the mind. And the mind is controlled by the buddhi. Now all these things are so difficult to even conceive. So Upanishad gives a wonderful imagery, that of a chariot. Now the chariot is our body, the horses are our sense organs, and you have to somehow control them. How do you control it? The reins are there. Otherwise, the horses will be going in different directions. The vehicle will crash, the chariot will crash. But who will hold the, there should be some charioteer. That is what we are trying. That is our first intermediate goal, to get a good charioteer for our vehicle. And that charioteer is buddhi. The fourth level. We start with Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, which is just, mind is nothing but subtle matter. It plays the role of a very strong, it has to be strong. Otherwise, the reins, if they just break, no matter how good the charioteer is, everything should be strong. The wheel should be strong, the horses should be strong. But in spite of that, and the reins also should be strong, the mind should be strong, the reactive mind, the manas. But the main thing is, the most important role is the charioteer. He only knows how to guide us to the proper destination. Others are important, but mind is more important. So the imagery tells us the buddhi controls the mind, mind controls the sense organs control the body, that is the chariot. So we had now the intermediate goal is established, that is buddhi. So what does this buddhi mean? Now this is a very big topic, but at least we understood one thing, that it is this subtler controls the grosser. So if we want, we have to, there is a story which I yesterday mentioned, but let us not repeat it. Swamiji gives a wonderful example. So, but these things we have to remember, the 4 stages of a mantra. The sound, when it is uttered, there are 4 stages. They went so deep into this idea, how the mantra impacts even our ordinary words that we utter. We think they are powerless, but every word that we utter can create a fight, can create a war. Anger and all, you see, it's not just the sound. If the sound is combined with the meaning, there is a story, I'll just, that somebody called a fat person, called him a hippopotamus. And there was absolutely no reaction, because he did not know what it meant. Then he just laughed, but when he went back home, he just said, let me see what it means. Then when he saw the dictionary and the picture of the hippopotamus, then he got angry. So words are important, but provided you know what those words mean. So that is the main thing in mantra yoga. You can utter words, they have their own power. But if you understand the knowledge behind that mantra, the idea behind the mantra, no doubt Nam and Nami are different, but there's a meaning. It is not just a vague thing, something which is very simple. There's a deep meaning behind the mantra. So we will discuss it. Now I'll just tell the 5 stages. The first thing which we have to understand is this constant repetition, or that energizes the nervous energy to pass through the hollow, which is Sushumna, and that is how the spiritual life begins. And then we are led to a place within that is known as spiritual heart, which is the seat of buddhi. That is another discovery they made. The buddhi has to have a seat. It has to have a location. The center of consciousness, which is buddhi, with the help of which we begin our spiritual journey after reaching that stage. Now it may look, it is such a big headache. It's not as difficult as it appears now, but if you have faith, then these things are insignificant. It automatically happens. But if it doesn't, if we don't have faith, then you better try to reason it out and try to understand why we do it. So the outer sound is known as Vaikhari. It is the sound which we utter. The mantra that we utter is uttered first loudly through the mouth. We hear it. But after that, we have to go deeper for the mantra to have effect. The Madhyama state is the aspect of thought production, which is just before uttering. So when you see some object, before you mention a cow, you have to have an idea of cow in the mind. Otherwise, you will not say cow. Something forces, that is known as Madhyama. And deeper still, there is a state known as Pashyanti. Now, in mantra yoga, in this particular tradition, in all the mantras in any tradition, in tantras, the bija represents to helps us to reach the Pashyanti state. Before that, like ordinary sounds, we say dog, a dog's picture come and we say that. It is as simple as that. That is not mantra yoga. To reach the Pashyanti state, we need a key. That key is known as bija. And it represents the power of our Ishta Devata. You see what a wonderful science this mantra is. The Ishta Devata, if we want to unlock and find out what our Ishta Devata is he just a photograph which we normally see in the picture? That is what we think our Ishta is. But he is much deeper than that. So how do we know who is Sri Ramakrishna? He is definitely not unknown. He can be known. Not by the mind, but if he reveals himself. That is what exactly is meant by the Pashyanti stage, where the bija as the power of Ishta Devata hidden in it. And the idea, I repeated it, I told it last time, but I'm just repeating it because this is very important. Why we call it bija? Bija means a seed. Anybody who has seen a seed, any gram or anything, has two cotyledons. There are two parts of one seed. They are united normally unless you decide to split them. So, just as a bija has two cotyledons, so also name and form are distinct. Suppose one side of the cotyledon is nama, the name, and the other is the form. So how does the bija reveal to us the Ishta on whom we are meditating? Because if we see the form, as I told you, there is a visualization. Then for many people, nama vanishes. Nama and rupa, the name and the form, they are like these two cotyledons. They are distinct, but they remain as one. At that level, our thought gets split. When we actually think and then we utter that word, we just split it. This is the name, that is Ramakrishna, and this is the form, that is Ramakrishna. So in technical terms, it is known as Shabda and Artha. Shabda means sound, Artha means the meaning. So every thinking, whether it is mantra or any other thinking, it is based on Shabda and Artha. You try to imagine this, it's a simple thing. There cannot be Shabda without Artha. Otherwise, you will call that person mad. If you speak some strange language which doesn't have any meaning, the nama is not connected to the form, then you don't make this. If you are suppose listening to a foreign language, he's speaking something, sounds are hitting our ears, we are hearing the sound, but we do not know what it means because we have not been able to connect the form with the name. We don't know what he says when he utters a word, what it means. So every thinking is based on Shabda and Artha. And then you are given a mantra, or the Guru gives the mantra and asks to meditate on your Ishta Devata. Now, so Devata, the Ishta Devata, and the mantra, Nama, that is mantra, Sri Ramakrishna or anybody, Krishna's name, and Krishna, the form, they coexist as in a seed. That is the secret of this bija. What we call thought, when we think the mantra, I mean, mantra is supposed to be repeated in the mind. They are a combination of these two. When you repeat the mantra and meditate on the deity, they appear to be separate at first. They appear to be separate. It's a problem with everybody. Everyone will ask, when I think, I can't repeat. When I repeat, I can't think. Because one of the fundamental principles of our mind, according to Patanjali, you can't multitask. There's only one task you do at a time. If you try, actually you are doing many tasks, one following the other, and that exhausts you. Some people think that multitasking is very good, but the mind, the human personality is such, the awareness can be, it can either visualize or it can think or it can repeat the name. They happen in such rapid succession, you think they are happening at the same time. So we normally cannot imagine that these things are happening separately, but they are happening very fast. So You may not repeat the mantra at a certain stage of your sadhana or upasana, but you can visualize this form. Or sometimes you may not visualize the deity, but you can repeat the mantra. These two are separate. You know it is separate, nama and rupa. But as concentration deepens, that is what the bija does. The separate cotyledons give you nama rupa alternate. But when you concentration deepens, you dive deep. That is when you reach the center of when your buddhi awakens. That, as I told you, that is the intermediate goal. Only when the buddhi awakens, you understand there is something more complicated. It's not, as the concentration deepens, as we dive deep, you can feel at some stage, if you are lucky. Some people have it. I mean, they really don't see it as a problem at all. They say right from beginning. I've heard many people have told me that it is possible. They don't find any difficulty in meditating on the form and repeating the name. But that happens if the concentration deepens. If you take your spiritual practices seriously, you know at a certain stage the form and name combine. That is when you have reached one stage. The name and form sink into the consciousness. That is the heart center. That's why we say meditate in the heart. Don't meditate anywhere you like. That is what the Guru tells you. So if you follow that union of name and form, if you are very sincere in your spiritual practices, the third stage will come, which is Pashyanti. It is like a ordinary pulse seed, where the cotyledons are combined. A Bengal gram or a red, they consist of separate parts. There are some seeds which are joined together. Very difficult to separate. So that is the stage, the third stage, where you reach the Pashyanti stage when you do Japa, and name and form remain united. Though they are separate, definitely they are separate. But in your consciousness, they are one. So that is what the bija does. The bija is so important in our mantra because it facilitates this process. And finally, we come to the para, which is in our mantra, it is represented by Om. So there is no mantra normally without Om. So it begins with Om. So when we feel the effect of the bija, and it leads to the realization of the Om, which is our Ishta. It represents the power of Ishvara. That is the first manifestation of Brahman, the first sound manifestation of Brahman. So when you implant that divine name in the depths of your mind, the buddhi awakens, and the rhythmic chanting that you do in the mind, of course, everything is to be done in the mind. It is known as verbal pranayama. I discussed this yesterday also. It's worth repeating again. Pranayama when you do breathe through one nostril, and that is just to steady the body. It may steady the mind, the ordinary, but it can't do much. The ordinary pranayama will just quieten the samskaras, the restless samskaras. Temporarily, it will say, now you keep quiet, don't disturb me. But when the rhythmic chanting happens and the kundalini is awakened, your mantra sinks into the consciousness and slowly destroys the samskaras. So every thought, every mantra, repetition of the mantra has a para state. When you got it, when the mantra was given to you, or when it was originally not given to you, when it was originally uttered by the rishi. That is why the tradition has such importance in this. It can be traced to the original rishi. In our case, it is Sri Ramakrishna, our Holy Mother. From where the mantra has come. It has come from a para state. So you follow the reverse process. From para state, it has come Pashyanti, then it comes to the Madhyama, and then it has come when your Guru utters it. It is just the external state. But then why are you asked not to stick to the sound form? That is the Vaikhari. Vaikhari is only during initiation. Afterwards, you have to, people don't like it. They said, why can't we repeat it loudly? Because you are expected to go to the higher state, so that it's easier to go to the para state. So you do not know what the bija works, its underground operations. If you think a spiritual thought, especially when it is in that Pashyanti state, the verbal pranayama, that it is known as verbal pranayama. For want of a better word, I'm just saying verbal pranayama. The pranayama by breathing is known to all. It will just give you a healthy body, that's all. Or maybe a slightly decent mind, a focused mind, a skilled mind. But beyond that, it can't do anything. It can't touch any of our samskaras. They cannot be destroyed. Only through verbal pranayama, when the Kundalini awakens, then all the samskaras are killed they are made powerless. Even if it is not killed, they will be made powerless. So we do not know how it works. We have to believe, because that is what the tantras say. So, but what happens when we repeat the mantra? Because the devata, as I said, and the nama and nami are same. So even if we don't know who Sri Ramakrishna is, we know that the vibrations of the mantra in our mind, there is a psychic resonance in our whole system, which tune us with the Devata's vibrations. That is the secret of this mantra. You see, the article on vibrations, if some of you, it is there on the website. Please read that article on by Ashokanand in 3 parts. It was a very long article. He has taken so much pains to explain what vibrations mean, because without that, we do not know what this bija does, what the mantra does. So the mantras help us to tune with the Devata's vibrations. It's not an ordinary thing. When the Devata's vibrations, we are not in tune. That is why all the suffering. Just imagine if we are in tune with Sri Ramakrishna's vibrations, then we have nothing to worry. Or Holy Mother's vibrations. She never felt any sorrow any time in her life, though her life externally was full of sorrow. I think she was in a more precarious position than any of the householders. So many problems externally, but she had gone deep within. And every time there was a new problem, she could easily sink. I mean, her consciousness was not disturbed at all. So, because her mind was tuned with the Devata's vibrations, the Sri Ramakrishna's vibration. If you consider Sri Ramakrishna as a Rishta, she says, na Ramakrishna Gata Prana, one whose vibrations were tuned with that of Ramakrishna. So there's no difference. Essentially, there's no difference between mother. So this psychic resonance is what we want to establish. That is the secret, because if we understand, then we say Devata's grace flows into you. So we'll have to discuss it. I repeated many things. The primary reason being is that these things cannot be discussed superficially. So that is how the mantra, any mantra for the matter, not just in the Ramakrishna tradition, the function of the bija is known, how the grace flows into you. And when we get some kind of what is known as verbal pranayama, because the pranas are now restless, they are not only creating havoc in our body, which leads to disturbance in our mind also, but the prana is not even able to prevent thoughts. The samskaras are constantly bubbling up and we are not able to stop it. We are helpless. These waves of thoughts continuously come. The main principle of Japa, I'll conclude with this, is the spiritual resonance between the jiva, the center of gravity, as I said, where our pratyagatman, the center of our consciousness, and that is why we try to install the devata there. It may be difficult in the beginning because the vibrations of the devata are so powerful, we may not be able to even imagine, because they are not in tune. But this has to be done. That's the only purpose of doing japa. Otherwise, what's the purpose of this bija and the repetition of the mantra? So that para state, the om, from which the mantra proceeds, om, the bija, and the name of the Lord, it represents actually the condensed power of the devata. So that is now you are establishing that devata on whomsoever you meditate. The bija gives you the key to unlock that connection, that Wi-Fi password. So you just connect immediately, and the moment it is connected through this sadhana or upasana, the, the spiritual practice that you are doing, the upasana that you are doing, starts bearing fruit. Then only you can say that you have reached one intermediate goal, and then you have to make it your own. And I'll conclude with one example. When somebody asked Swami Brahmanandji, said, Thakur has given you grace, he has given you all the visions, why are you doing it? He said, yes, but I have to make it myself, make it my own. It was given, and just as Arjuna was given a wonderful message of Bhagavad Gita, but he was so mentally disturbed, perhaps, he forgot everything. And again, that Anu Gita, Krishna had to repeat the whole thing in a condensed form. So that is our condition. We keep on forgetting. So we have to be reminded. And when the Devata, actually, when the first step is covered in sadhana, when we discover our real buddhi, when the buddhi awakens, then all the other things become clear. Spiritual life begins. So Brahmanandji said, I have got everything, but now I have to make it my own. For that, I have to do upasana. There's no shortcut. So that's why it explains how much sadhana I did on the bank of Narmada. He was meditating so intensely. So others would have wondered, you are the spiritual child of Sri Ramakrishna. You got everything from him. And why? He said, no, I have to make it my own. So that is how the self-effort, the repetition of the mantra helps us. So I'll take your leave now. And I think we have exceeded the time by 20 minutes. So I'll take your leave. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Of course, tomorrow, there's the Gospel of Holy Mother. We don't have Gita. So I might continue this topic tomorrow. And of course, Sunday we can't, because we have a spiritual retreat, which I explained to you just now.